Each day in Stoic week has its own central theme, and these themes build upon one another as the week progresses, making the whole week, potentially, the beginning of a deeper journey into Stoicism. Take some time out at midday each day, or any time that suits you, to reflect on the day's theme and how it might shape the various activities in which you are engaged. There are also morning and evening meditations, which you should try to practice at the beginning and end of each day. Let's now explore these two exercises in more detail. When you wake up each morning, take a few moments to compose yourself, and then patiently rehearse the day ahead, planning how you can make yourself a better person, while also accepting that some things lie beyond your control. 1. Marcus Aurelius talks about walking on your own to a quiet place at daybreak and meditating upon the stars and the rising sun to prepare for the day ahead. You can also do this at home, sitting on the end of your bed, or standing in front of the mirror in your bathroom, and still think of the sun rising against a backdrop of stars. 2. Pick a specific philosophical principle that you want to rehearse and repeat it to yourself a few times before imagining how you could put it into practice during the rest of the day. You might choose the key general Stoic theme. Some things are under our control, whereas others are not. And to think about giving more importance to being a good person, acting well, and treating things you cannot control as ultimately much less important. 3. Alternatively, you might pick a specific virtue that you want to cultivate in order to prepare yourself mentally for your day ahead. For example, imagine in broad outline how you would act if you showed more wisdom, justice, courage, or moderation. 4. Practice this meditation for about 5-10 minutes, picking out key events or specific challenges that might arise. Once you've gotten into the habit of doing this, try imagining greater challenges in the day ahead, such as some of your plans not going as you hope or dealing with difficult people. As you consider a possible difficulty, think about how you could tackle it with a Stoic principle or virtue. Say to yourself at daybreak, "I shall come across the meddling busybody, the ungrateful, the overbearing, the treacherous, the envious, and the antisocial." All this. Epictetus and Seneca both allude to a form of philosophical self-analysis that was practiced regularly, each evening, by Stoics. The contemplative exercise they describe was actually borrowed from Pythagoreanism. For example, Epictetus quoted the following passage from the Golden Verses of Pythagoras to his students: "Allow not sleep to close your wearied eyes, until you have reckoned up each daytime deed. Where did I go wrong? What did I do? And what duties left undone? From first to last review your acts, and then reprove yourself for wretched or cowardly acts, but rejoice in those done well." Discourses 3:10-3. For our purposes, at night before going to sleep, take 5-10 minutes to review the events of your day, picturing them in your mind if possible. It's best if you can do this before actually getting into bed, where you might begin to feel drowsy rather than thinking clearly. You may find it helpful to write notes on your reflections and self-analysis in a journal, documenting your journey as you learn to apply Stoic practices in daily life. Try to remember the order in which you encountered different people throughout the day, the tasks you engaged in, what you said and did, and so on. Ask yourself the following or similar questions. 1. What did you do badly? Did you allow yourself to be ruled by fears or desires of an excessive or irrational kind? Did you act badly or allow yourself to indulge in irrational thoughts? 2. What did you do well? Did you make progress by strengthening your grasp of the virtues, praise yourself, and reinforce what you want to repeat? 3. What could you do differently? Did you omit any opportunities to exercise virtue or strength of character? How could you have handled things better? As Seneca puts it, by asking yourself these questions, you are adopting the role of a friend and wise advisor toward yourself, rather than a harsh or punitive critic. Criticize your specific actions rather than yourself as a person in general, and focus on ways in which you can improve. We can probably assume that a Stoic whose self-analysis and review of the preceding day leads him to conclude he has erred in his judgment, acted badly, or failed to follow his principles, would seek to learn from this and act differently the following day. When you wake up the next day, you'll find it natural to base your morning meditation on your reflections before going to sleep the previous night. These meditations combine to form a learning cycle as you plan how to live and act more wisely. Put this into practice during the day and then reflect on the outcome afterwards, leading to the same cycle the following day. Modern research-based psychotherapy advises that you'll need to be cautious to avoid reflection, turning into morbid rumination. Don't dwell too long on things or go around in circles. Rather, try to keep a practical focus and arrive at clear decisions if possible. If you are not able, then set your thoughts aside and return to them in the morning. There are many hidden aspects to this exercise, which will become clearer as you progress in your studies of Stoicism. For example, bearing in mind that the past is beyond your ability to change, you might want to use this review to adopt an attitude of provisional acceptance of your own failings, forgiving yourself while resolving to behave differently in the future. Hence, as Seneca emphasizes when describing his use of the same evening routine, we should not be afraid of contemplating our mistakes because as Stoics we can say, "Beware of doing that again, and this time I pardon you." Date, time, event. Note the date and time of the event, when you started to feel angry or afraid, for example. Briefly describe the actual situation you were facing, e.g., perhaps someone criticized your work, or maybe someone offered you some junk food while you were trying to lead a healthy life. 2. Feelings. What emotions or desires did you actually experience? The Stoics use the technical term passions for both. Remember, we're only interested in feelings that might be considered irrational in the sense of being misguided and negative. Following on from our examples above, you might write down that you felt excessively anxious or angry about being criticized, or that you felt a strong craving to eat junk food, which you found hard to resist. Remember that you're also trying to catch these feelings early, so try to note early warning signs, which are often sensations such as trembling when afraid, or thoughts such as telling yourself just one won't hurt when you're tempted to eat something unhealthy. 3. Thoughts. What related thoughts went through your mind? Stoic psychology held that our emotions and desires fundamentally depend upon our thoughts, particularly our value judgments. Be forewarned that most people find it difficult at first to identify the specific thoughts that are responsible for their feelings. You'll probably need to work on this, but with practice and study it should become easier. Were you telling yourself that something external is very good, desirable, or bad? Upsetting? For example, someone who feels anxious and angry about being criticized might come to realize that they're thinking, "I must be respected at work," and placing great importance or intrinsic value on other people's opinions of them, instead of wanting to do their job well for its own sake. 4. Control. As we'll see, this is the central question that Stoics use to evaluate their impressions. Is it up to me? They meant, is this, the thing that my feelings are about, under my direct control? Again, don't worry too much about this for your first day or so, because as you learn more about Stoicism, you'll get better at posing this question. For example, you might observe that other people's opinions of you are ultimately beyond your direct control. All you can control in this situation is your response to their words and perhaps your plans for how to act in the future. Even your previous failings are no longer within your power to change. You can't rewrite the past. This distinction between what is up to us and what is not is crucial for Stoics, as you'll see. They urge us to serenely accept those things. In life we cannot change while taking full responsibility for bringing our own voluntary actions into line with our moral principles. Just write a few words here summing up your analysis of the situation in terms of which aspects you do or do not control. Alternatively, rate how much control you have over the aspects of the situation that upset you on a rough subjective scale from 0–100%. However, we'll need to explore this question more carefully in the following parts of the course. 5. Actions. In this situation, how far did your actions actually match your ethical principles? Did you act in a way which matches your understanding of virtue that was wise, just, courageous, and temperate, Or did you act in a way that was marked by foolishness, unfairness, cowardice, and self-indulgence? Think about how you treated other people and not just how your actions affected. If what they're doing is right, you've no reason to complain, but if it's not right, they don't really understand what they're doing. Notice that most people are shocked if they're accused of doing wrong. 4. Remember that you're not perfect yourself, and sometimes do the wrong thing or upset people. Or if you don't do so often, you at least have the potential to do so in certain situations. 5. You can never be absolutely certain what they're doing is wrong anyway. People's real motives are often hidden from you and not what they seem. 6. When you're angry with others, remind yourself that all things are transient, and especially that both of you are mortal and will soon be gone and ultimately forgotten anyway. 7. Prevent yourself from thinking of things other people do or say as insults by realizing that fundamentally, you have been done no harm. Your moral character cannot be damaged by other people's actions. 8. Know that our own anger and frustration harm us more than they harm the person they're directed toward. 9. Teach yourself that genuine kindness toward others can be a powerful force and that, as long as it's sincere, with patient perseverance, even stubborn people can be won over. Speak to people carefully and without any trace of sarcasm or hostility, and they will often respond. 10. Most importantly, bear in mind that it's naive to expect everyone in the world to be perfect, and that most people are bound to do foolish and vicious things from time to time. The wise man knows this and prepares for it in advance, accepting difficult encounters with other people as an inevitable part of life. Marcus also repeats similar advice to himself in Meditations 9:42. He's clearly approaching the issue of interpersonal conflict very systematically and drawing on Stoic teachings in doing so. If you prefer something simpler, by contrast, Epictetus gave his students the very laconic advice to tell themselves it seemed right to them when dealing with difficult people. We begin our first day by thinking about two Stoic themes that are central to the first book of Marcus Aurelius's philosophical journal, the Meditations. One is the idea that our whole life should be seen as an ongoing project or journey of ethical self-development. The other is that, on this journey, we can improve our own development by reflecting on the good qualities and ways of life of the people who mean most to us. The word philosophy literally means love of wisdom. The Stoics can be viewed as taking this quite literally. Wisdom is the central virtue of Stoicism, and the Stoics love virtue in themselves and others, above all else. In the morning text quoted above, Marcus thinks about what he learned about wisdom and virtue from Maximus, an older family friend who was a leading politician with deep philosophical interests. He focuses on Maximus's integrity of character, his emotional balance, his genuineness and ease in dealing with other people, all qualities valued by Stoicism, whose basis will become clear in the coming week. An important feature of Stoic theory lies behind Book 1 of Marcus's Meditations. It is the idea that human life, if lived properly, is an ongoing project or journey directed towards the best possible human condition, that of wisdom. There are two strands to this journey. One is individual, and the other social. At an individual level, we can learn to move from an instinctive desire for such things as self-preservation, health, and property, towards wanting to live in the best possible way. For the Stoics, this means living according to the virtues of wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage. The culmination of this strand is recognizing that virtue is the only thing that is fundamentally of value and the only real basis for happiness and fulfillment. The second strand concerns our relations to other people. The Stoics thought that human beings and other animals are instinctively drawn to care for others of their kind. Most obviously, to love and care for their children. However, as human beings develop, we deepen and extend this instinct of care, forming lasting family and community commitments and coming to recognize that all human beings are our brothers and sisters, since they are, like us, rational creatures capable of ethical development. The Stoics also thought that these two strands of development go hand in hand and support each other. All individuals are capable of developing in this way, regardless of their inborn characters and social background. However, This progress does not just happen automatically. You need to work at it, otherwise it can go very wrong. Marcus uses his regular note-taking and reflection, the meditations, to help this process of development, which he often describes as his real job or work, as a human being, for instance in tomorrow's morning text for reflection. In Book 1, he thinks about his whole life from early childhood until his late 50s as a cycle of development and reflects on the ethical qualities whose value he has learned to recognize, as well as the way that his relationships with other people have helped him to do this. We have written this handbook in a way that is designed to mirror Marcus's reflective practice, and to encourage you to try to do the same as Marcus did, forming your own notes and reflections based on the themes explored each day this week. Take a few minutes to think about the qualities you have come to value in the course of your life, however young or old you are. Have you changed your ideas about what is most important in the course of your life? As your situation has changed, do you think your ideas have deepened on this topic over time or not? You might like to make some notice on this or draw some pictures suggesting the qualities you find most significant. If you want to think too about the people who have helped you appreciate the importance of these qualities. They might be family members, close friends or partners, work associates, or people you do not know directly but whom you respect and admire. You might like to make notes or pictures on this, and also to chart links between specific individuals and the qualities you have come to value. This affection for others and deep admiration for the signs of wisdom and virtue they exhibit can be viewed as one aspect of what it means for Stoics to love wisely. You might like to contemplate the virtues of others at one sitting or space it through the day while you are doing other things. Like most of the exercises we suggest, it can be useful to come back to it as the week progresses and see how your thinking has developed on these topics. Morning. Read today's morning text. Mentally prepare for your day ahead by imagining how you might act more like your role models in life and share similar virtues in the face of the events you're about to face. 2. Midday. Practice writing your own philosophical journal, like Marcus Aurelius. Focus on writing down the virtues you admire in others and which you aspire to embody in your own life. Use writing as an opportunity to clarify the qualities you admire and think of it as an opportunity to contemplate them more deeply than normal. 3. Evening. Read today's evening text. Reflect on how things went today, what you may have done badly, what you did well, and what you could do differently in the future. Imagine being your own Stoic life coach and try to counsel yourself with wisdom and affection. Remember, you can use the Stoic self-monitoring record throughout the day. In particular today, you may want to focus on developing greater self-awareness of You may find this additional piece of advice helpful. The Stoics appear to have repeated certain key phrases or maxims to themselves in order to memorize them and have them constantly ready to hand, especially in the face of a crisis. Epictetus told his students to repeat various statements to themselves mentally. Some of these are of a general nature, whereas others are things Stoics were told to say in response to specific emotional challenges. For instance, "You're just an impression and not at all the thing you claim to represent," and "This is nothing to me," in response to troubling thoughts. When someone acted in a way that might be upsetting or objectionable, Epictetus told his students to say it seemed right to him. Hence, the Stoic literature is full of brief laconic phrases, memorable sayings that are eminently quotable, but also help Stoics to commit key philosophical ideas to memory as a way of coping with adverse circumstances. Indeed, when someone complained to Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, that these philosophical sayings were too condensed, he replied that they were supposed to be concise and that if he could, he'd abbreviate the sound of the syllables as well. Having these thoughts always at hand and engrossing yourself in them when you are by yourself and making them ready for use, you will never need anyone to comfort and strengthen you. Some things are under my control and other things are not. People are upset not by things but by their judgments about things. You are just an appearance and not at all the thing you claim to represent. Response to a troubling impression. You are nothing to me. Response to things not under your control. Virtue is the only true good. What is beyond my control is indifferent to me. indifference to indifferent things. If you want any good, get it from within yourself. Don't demand that things go as you will, but will that they happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. Sickness is a hindrance to the body, but not to the will. Never say of anything, I have lost it, but I have returned it. It seemed right to them. Response to someone whose actions seem disagreeable to you. Everything has two handles and can be picked up and carried either wisely or foolishly. Whoever yields properly to fate is deemed wise among men and knows the laws of heaven, quoted from Euripides. These two famous sayings were also associated with Epictetus's brand of Stoicism. Remember, you must die. Endure and renounce, or bear and forbear, having the virtues of courage and early in the morning. When you are finding it hard to wake up, hold this thought in your mind. I am getting up to do the work of a human being. Do I still resent it, if I am going out to do what I was born for and for which I was brought into the world? Or was I framed for this, to lie under the bedclothes and keep myself warm? But this is more pleasant. So were you born for pleasure? In general, were you born for feeling or for affection? Don't you see the plants, the little sparrows, the ants, the spiders, the bees doing their own work and playing their part in making up an ordered world? And then, are you unwilling to do the work of a human being? Won't you run to do what is in line with your nature? Marcus Aurelius. Meditations today and tomorrow. We focus on themes that are important for the meditative practices we are recommending in this handbook. These themes have parallels in some modern psychotherapeutic methods, but they also have a firm basis in Stoic writings and practices. The themes for today and tomorrow are expressed with special force in Marcus E. Today we think about two important linked Stoic themes, distinguishing between what is and is not in our power, and wishing with reservation. Both of these themes follow from the ideas about human development outlined yesterday. Stoics believe that all of us can and should work at taking forward our own ethical development by learning how to act virtuously and by broadening and deepening our relationships with other people. This is something that is up to us or within our power as rational beings. However, there are many things we cannot determine by our own actions, such as whether we become rich or famous, whether we get ill, or whether close family members die. Stoics believe that what is up to use or within our power is of ultimate importance in our lives rather than the things that we cannot control. Although they recognize that it is natural for us to prefer being healthy or well off. For example, Stoics regard these things as being of fundamentally less value than virtue. They also believe that recognizing the distinction between what is and is not within our power is crucial for leading a good human life, and one that is free from passions or negative and destructive emotions. For this reason, when we form wishes about things that are not wholly within our power, we should wish with reservation, or with a reserve clause, a caveat such as, if nothing prevents it. Otherwise, our plans and wishes are not based on the realities of human life and may lead to frustration and disillusionment. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, social role or status, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. He also points out that if we focus our wishes and desires on things that are not wholly within our power, such as health, wealth, and social status, this will lead to disappointment and negative emotions. Try out how the life of a good person suits you. Someone who is pleased with what is allocated from the whole and satisfied with his own. Just actions and kind disposition. Love the expertise which you have learned and take support from this. Pass the remainder of your life as one who has entrusted all he has in a full-hearted way to the gods, living in this way. On the other hand, Marcus also urges himself to accept that his actions and life are part of a much wider pattern of events, of which he controls a very small part. He is part of a much larger whole, an interconnected series of events, or fate, which can also be attributed to the gods. We will discuss Marcus's thinking on nature or the whole on Sunday. This is a contrast that runs through much of the meditations, and helps him to face many harsh realities in his life. Above all, the looming prospect of his own death. Try to persuade them, and act even against their will whenever the principle of justice leads you to do so. But if someone uses force to resist you, change your approach to accepting it and not being hurt, and use the setback to express another virtue. Remember, too, that your motive was formed with reservation and that you were not aiming at the impossible. At what then? A motive formed with reservation. But you have achieved this. What we propose to ourselves is actually happening. Marcus Aurelius Morning. Read today's morning text. Mentally prepare for your day ahead by imagining how you might respond to any setbacks or challenges with Stoic wisdom, distinguishing between what is up to you and what isn't, and pursuing external goals with the reserve clause described above. 2. Midday. Analyze some specific situations in more detail by listing the aspects up to you and those not. Contemplate what it would mean to pursue your other goals this week, or in life more generally, by really taking the Stoic reserve clause to heart. Saying to yourself, I will do XYZ, and adding, for instance, fate permitting. 3. Evening. Read today's evening text. Reflect on how things went today, what you may have done badly, what you did well, and what you could do differently in the future. Think about the extent to which you successfully bore in mind the distinction between what was under your control and what wasn't. Notice that the actions you're reviewing from the day, now it is over, are no longer up to you because they're in your past. People look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the coast, or in the hills. And you too are especially inclined to feel this desire. But this is altogether unphilosophical, when it is possible for you to retreat into yourself at any time you want. There is nowhere that a person can find a more peaceful and trouble-free retreat than in his own mind, especially if he has within himself the kind of thoughts that let him dip into them, and so at once gain complete ease of mind. And by ease of mind, I mean nothing but having one's own mind in good order. So constantly give yourself this retreat and renew yourself. You should have to hand concise and fundamental principles, which will be enough, as soon as you encounter them, to cleanse you from all distress and send you back without resentment at the activities to which you return. Marcus Aurelius. We've already suggested that you can help develop a Stoic approach by self-monitoring. Another way of putting this is to use the idea of Stoic mindfulness. Mindfulness in modern psychotherapy is derived from Buddhist meditation. However, there is a comparable focus in ancient Stoicism on living in the here and now, and paying close attention to our thoughts and feelings. Today's morning text for reflection gives a very powerful expression of Stoic mindfulness, as Marcus reminds himself of the value of putting his mind in good. He says that we should train ourselves to avoid errors in our judgments and being carried away by our thoughts and feelings. For Stoics, the key error of judgment lies in treating external things, such as health and money, as if they were intrinsically good or bad, and forgetting that virtue is the only true good. We've already looked at this aspect of Stoicism when we talked about reflecting on whether our judgments refer to things within our power or not. Epictetus says the key to retaining our grip on objective reality and not being swept away by irrational desire or emotions is that before we even begin to challenge our thoughts, we must learn to step back from them temporarily. That is what he means by examining your impressions. Impression is a very general term in Stoicism covering all thoughts, feelings, and sensations. Epictetus stresses that we should examine all these before accepting them as valid and as matching objective reality. To understand what Epictetus meant, it may help to compare it to a psychological strategy employed in modern therapy called cognitive distancing. In cognitive therapy, which was originally inspired by Stoicism, it's assumed that before we can challenge negative patterns of thinking,